If you've ever sat across from a woman and thought, what do I say that actually makes her feel something? Not small talk, not rehearsed lines, but something that shifts the air between you, then this message is for you. Because attraction doesn't start in the body, it starts in the mind. Think about how most conversations go. Two people sitting across from each other, exchanging facts, jobs, hometowns, hobbies. It's polite. It's functional and yet emotionally empty. Now imagine instead that you lean in slightly and ask her, what's something about you that people usually misunderstand? In that moment, you've stepped out of the shallow waters and into depth. And depth is where attraction begins to breathe. Every person walks through the world wearing a social mask. It's not fake. It's protective. She might be known as the strong one, the funny one, the independent one. Over time, people respond to that identity, not the person beneath it. Psychologically, this creates a quiet loneliness because when no one asks about the inner world, the nervous system stays guarded. But when you ask what she feels misunderstood about, you signal something rare. You're not here for the performance. You're here for the person. From a behavioral psychology perspective, being accurately seen activates powerful reward circuits in the brain. When someone articulates a hidden truth about themselves and is met with calm, attentive presence instead of judgment, the brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. This isn't romance yet. It's safety. And safety is the foundation of desire. Picture her pausing after you ask the question. There's a microsecond of hesitation. That hesitation is her brain scanning. Is this safe? Can I say this? If you the power of being emotionally seen, maintain eye contact, stay relaxed, and don't rush to fill the silence. You communicate nonverbally, that you can handle depth. When she finally shares, maybe she says people think she's cold when she's actually shy, or that she acts tough because she learned early not to rely on anyone. You've just been invited into a private room most men never see. What you do next matters even more. If you interrupt, joke, or turn it back to yourself, the door closes. But if you simply say, that makes sense, or I can see how that would feel, you validate her inner reality. Validation lowers psychological defenses faster than any flirtatious line ever could. And here's the deeper truth. Attraction intensifies when someone feels emotionally recognized, not flattered, not chased, recognized. When she feels that you see beyond her surface identity, her body relaxes, her tone softens, her posture opens, the mask slips. And when the mask slips, real connection, the kind that can lead to intimacy, becomes possible. There's a reason the question, when do you feel most alive, hits differently than anything about work, routine, or daily responsibilities. It bypasses logic and goes straight into emotional memory. And emotional memory is where attraction quietly builds its foundation. When you ask her that question, you're not asking for information. You're inviting her nervous system to relive a peak state. Think about what happens internally when someone recalls a moment they felt fully alive. Maybe she talks about dancing barefoot at a wedding, laughing so hard she forgot who was watching. Maybe she describes hiking at sunrise, the air cold against her skin, the world quiet and untouched. Or maybe it was a spontaneous road trip where she felt free and uncontained. As she describes it, her brain begins reconstructing the experience. Neuroscience shows that the brain does not sharply distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and real ones. The same neural pathways light up. Her breathing changes. Her eyes brighten. Her gestures become animated. What's happening psychologically is powerful. You've shifted the conversation from identity to emotion. Instead of talking about who, question number 1, unlocking her hidden identity. She is on paper. She's reconnecting with who she is at her core. The version of herself that feels expansive, passionate, unguarded. And here's the subtle dynamic most men miss. The person who is present while she re-experiences those elevated emotions becomes neurologically linked to that state. This isn't manipulation. It's associative conditioning. Human beings naturally connect feelings to the environment and people around them. If she feels boredom during a date, her mind associates you with boredom. But if she feels aliveness, curiosity, and emotional intensity while speaking to you, Her subconscious begins pairing you with those sensations. Picture the shift in a real life setting. At first, she's sitting back, posture neutral, answering politely. Then she begins describing the moment she felt most alive. Her hands move. Her smile widens. Her voice lowers with excitement. You don't interrupt. You lean in. You let her stay in that emotional space. That uninterrupted presence amplifies the effect. She feels heard, but more importantly, she feels energized. Emotion drives attraction far more than logic ever could. People don't fall for resumes. They fall for how someone makes them feel. When she feels most alive in your presence, even if the memory wasn't about you, the emotional charge lingers in the air between you. And in that charged space, connection deepens without a single forced move. Most men underestimate how much of attraction is regulated by the nervous system. They think it's about looks, timing, or boldness. But before desire ever reaches the body, the brain asks one silent question. Am I safe here? When you ask a woman, what makes you feel safe with someone? You're doing something radically different from most interactions. You're shifting the focus from performance to protection, from impressing to understanding. Understand this deeply. Women more than men are biologically wired to scan for emotional and physical safety in relational contexts. It's not weakness. It's evolutionary psychology. If her nervous system senses unpredictability, pressure, or ego-driven behavior, subtle stress hormones activate, cortisol rises, muscles tense, guard goes up. An emotional memory and the science of feeling alive. When the body is in defense mode, desire shuts down. You cannot build genuine attraction on top of tension and anxiety. But when you ask what safety feels like to her, something changes. You're inviting her to define her emotional boundaries. Maybe she says she feels safe when someone is consistent. Maybe it's when a man keeps his word. Maybe it's when she doesn't feel rushed physically. As she explains, she's not just describing preferences. She's revealing past wounds. Every safety need is born from a past experience where safety was missing. Picture a real scenario. She tells you. She values consistency because she once dated someone hot and cold. In that moment, she's exposing a vulnerability. If you respond defensively, I'm not like that, you shift back into ego. But if you say calmly, that makes sense. Instability can really mess with someone's trust. You're co-regulating her nervous system. Your steady tone communicates emotional strength. Behavioral psychology calls this attunement, the ability to accurately read and respond to someone's emotional state. Attunement builds trust faster than charm ever will. When a woman feels emotionally attuned to, her body relaxes. Shoulders drop. Breathing slows. Eye contact softens. And when the nervous system feels regulated in your presence, you become associated with calm and security. Here's the paradox most men miss. Safety doesn't kill attraction. It fuels it. Because when she no longer has to protect herself around you, she can finally allow herself to feel. And when a woman feels both safe and emotionally understood, intimacy doesn't feel risky. It feels natural. Safety builds comfort, but comfort alone does not create desire. Desire requires tension, not anxiety, not fear, but polarity. When you ask her, what's something about you that would surprise most men? You introduce a subtle psychological spark. You shift the dynamic from predictable to intriguing, and the human brain is wired to move toward what feels novel and slightly mysterious. Understand this. Familiarity creates stability, but mystery creates magnetism. When everything about you feels fully known too quickly, the mind relaxes into neutrality. There's no reason to lean in safety, trust, and the female nervous system further. But when a layer of the unknown is revealed carefully, playfully, curiosity activates the dopamine system. Dopamine is not the chemical of love. It's the chemical of anticipation. It thrives on discovery. Imagine you're sitting with her and you ask that question. She pauses, smiles slightly, maybe tilts her head. There's a flicker in her eyes. That flicker is cognitive engagement. She's scanning her identity, choosing what to reveal. Maybe she says people think she's serious, but she secretly loves spontaneous adventures. Maybe she admits she has a competitive streak. Maybe she confesses she has a wild sense of humor. She only shows around the right person. In that moment, she's stepping outside the predictable persona she shows the world. And because you invited that revelation, you become associated with the space where she can be multidimensional. That is psychologically powerful. People are attracted to those who allow them to feel expansive. There's also a deeper behavioral principle at work. Uncertainty increases perceived value. When something is fully predictable, the brain conserves energy. But when there's a slight unpredictability, not chaos, but depth, attention sharpens. This is why playful teasing, light mystery, and gradual revelation create romantic tension. It's not about manipulation. It's about pacing, emotional exposure. Picture a real-life shift. At the beginning of the conversation, she's composed, measured. After revealing something unexpected about herself, her energy changes. She watches your reaction. If you respond with grounded amusement, curiosity, or appreciation, not shock or judgment, you reinforce the safety while maintaining intrigue. This balance is critical. Too much mystery without safety feels unstable. Too much safety without mystery feels platonic. But when she feels both secure and slightly curious about what else exists beneath the surface in herself and in you, chemistry begins to breathe. And chemistry at its core is simply curiosity mixed with emotional charge. When you ask her, "What's something you've learned about love the hard way?" you are no longer flirting. You are stepping into emotional territory most people avoid. And that's exactly why it's powerful, because beneath attraction, beneath charm, beneath physical chemistry, there is history, polarity, mystery, and building romantic tension. There are scars. There are lessons carved into someone's nervous system through disappointment, betrayal, longing, and growth. Every adult carries relational memory. Maybe she once trusted too quickly and got hurt. Maybe she stayed too long in something that drained her. Maybe she learned that love without boundaries turns into self-abandonment. When you invite her to share what love taught her the hard way, you're asking her to reflect not on fantasy, but on experience. Psychologically, this activates autobiographical memory tied to emotion. Emotional pain, when processed and articulated, creates vulnerability. And vulnerability is the doorway to intimacy, but only if it's received correctly. Picture this in real life. She tells you she learned that words mean nothing without consistency, or that she ignored red flags because she wanted to believe in potential. As she speaks, her tone might lower. Her body language may close slightly. This is not weakness. This is exposure. Her brain is scanning your reaction more than you realize. If you minimize it, yeah, that happens. The moment dies. If you turn it into a joke or a debate, she retreats. But if you hold steady eye contact and say, "That must have changed how you see things," you validate the emotional weight without trying to fix it. That steadiness communicates emotional maturity. From a behavioral psychology perspective, when someone shares vulnerability and is met with calm acceptance instead of rejection or panic, the brain encodes that interaction as safe bonding. Oxytocin increases. Defenses lower incrementally. She begins to feel that you are emotionally regulated, and emotional regulation is deeply attractive. Here's the deeper layer. When you can hold space for her past pain without trying to rescue, compete, or perform, you subtly demonstrate strength, not dominance, not aggression. Strength in stillness, and strength that doesn't need to prove itself, feels safe to lean into. When she realizes she can reveal something tender and not lose your respect, but actually feel more understood, the connection shifts. Attraction rooted in surface charm fades. Vulnerability and lessons learned in love quickly. Attraction rooted in emotional depth lingers. And in that lingering space, real intimacy has room to grow. There comes a moment in any charged interaction where uncertainty hangs in the air. You've built connection. You've shared stories. There's laughter, eye contact, subtle pauses that last half a second longer than they need to, but neither of you has named what's happening. This is where most men either rush physically or retreat out of fear. The more psychologically grounded move is to ask calmly and confidently, "What makes you feel real chemistry with someone?" That question does something profound. It shifts attraction from assumption to awareness. Instead of guessing what she wants or trying to impress her into desire, you invite her to define it. And when she begins to describe chemistry, maybe she says it's eye contact that lingers, intellectual depth, emotional confidence, playful tension. She is subconsciously evaluating whether she feels those things right now. This is called self-generated persuasion in behavioral psychology. People believe conclusions more deeply when they arrive at them themselves. If you tell her there's chemistry, it can feel like pressure. If she realizes it on her own while describing what chemistry feels like it, mutual chemistry and conscious attraction becomes authentic. Picture the subtlety of it. She says, chemistry feels like being able to talk for hours without checking the time. You smile slightly and say like this, not arrogant, not needy, just present. Now her brain makes the comparison. She becomes aware of her own experience in real time. That awareness intensifies the feeling. There's also vulnerability in asking this question. You're exposing yourself to the possibility that she may not feel it. And that's important. True confidence is not about forcing outcomes. It's about being grounded enough to handle truth. When you ask directly but calmly, your nervous system communicates strength. You're not chasing validation. You're inviting clarity. If she says she needs emotional safety for chemistry to build, and you've already created that space, she connects the dots. If she says she feels it when someone challenges her intellectually and you've been engaging her deeply, again, the dots connect. Attraction becomes mutual recognition rather than pursuit. And here's the most important layer. When desire is acknowledged instead of assumed, it becomes conscious. Conscious attraction is stronger than impulsive attraction. It feels chosen, not manipulated. And when two people become aware that the spark is shared, the shift in energy is undeniable. It's not about convincing her. It's about creating the psychological space where she can recognize what she already feels.